What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today we are getting to the Week 11 Saturday slate, the extra games we have not talked about yet. Our marquee video is already out on the channel. If you are interested in watching it, if you like this content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like. Those two things help us a ton. Thank you if you have done that. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, there's a lot to get into today. We are trying this live for the first time in a long time, so I'm just checking to make sure that back end have to go through the ads. But the main problem in the past has been my internet, and it's affected the audio. So if you notice something wrong, please let me know first and foremost. But that is all the housekeeping that we need to get into. There's a lot of games on deck and a lot of your requests. We'll kick this off with Temple versus Army. Right now, this game has a spread of 6.5 in favor of Army. The total in the game is 45 points. And first and foremost, you got to get the pacing out of the way. Yes, there is a triple option team in this contest. Yes, we are considering an over in this contest. And there are a couple reasons why. And pace, you just have to get it out of the way. Temple's not going to be fast either. They're 118th. Army is 132nd. But this comes down mainly to defensive efficiency on both teams. Before we get there, to get to this point, Temple has played a lot better this season. They beat UMass by a blowout in their first game. Then they knocked off Howard before beating both Charlotte and Tulsa in overtime. 2 quality wins there. They've lost some competitive games, but mainly coming against better teams on their schedule. You're going to lose games to Oklahoma and Georgia Tech. That just kind of is what it is. Then they dropped a game to Navy by 1 point, and they lost to East Carolina in blowout fashion. Meanwhile, Army has played a lot of competitive games too. They had the crazy loss to Tarleton State in week 1, where they actually had a 67% post-game win expectancy. They followed that up with a win over Kansas. Then they take North Texas all the way to overtime, end up losing, play a very ugly game against East Carolina where they lose 28-6. But there were a lot of drops in that game, failed third down conversions, and honestly, potential big plays that should have worked in Army's favor that just ended up being drops. They beat UAB, Charlotte, and then most recently they have a loss to Tulane, followed by last week's crazy back and forth affair against Air Force that actually ended a little lower than expected. Injuries in this game include Jalen Castleberry, a defensive back for Temple, and Avery Powell. For Army, it's Carson Smith at running back, Jacob Teote at defensive tackle, and Justin Weaver. So we're putting a little faith in both of the offenses here. And that starts with Temple and Evan Simon, who's actually played a little better than you would think this year, 64.5% completion percentage. He's at 7.4 yards per pass attempt, 12 big-time throws, and 7 turnover-worthy plays. Only one of those has been converted into an interception, so that's all well and good for him. 13 sacks is a pretty good number as well. This Temple team has been shockingly good this season with the skill position players. They rank 31st in receiving efficiency, and believe it or not, they rank 62nd in rushing efficiency too. And it's not just that. This Temple offensive line has actually played reasonably well. They have a good tight end. Peter Clark is among the most efficient tight ends in the G5. But across the offensive line, you really only have one weakness, and that's your center, Grayson Maines, who still comes in very close to average. He's just slightly below. But Eric King is a solid guard. Jacoby Hills and Diego Barajas are very good at tackle. This is a good foundation for this offense, and they can absolutely move the ball. Where this gets interesting is when you start looking at Army defensively. This team comes in 117th overall. Their main point of weakness is that defensive line. They are 115th in run defense and 133rd in pass rush. They're a little bit better in coverage, 77th there. But you need to be able to run the ball up the middle against this team. And you have a good transfer at running back in Jay Ducker for this Temple team. And then you're facing a defense that has been continually gashed by their opponents. They do not have a very strong interior. And you already lost Teote inside. Potentially he's someone to monitor in this game. That kind of just leaves Cody Harris-Miller. And the rest of this group is not that great, especially behind them two linebackers. Andon Thomas, Caleb Fortner, that's a below average unit. you have decent edge play, but that's on the edge, and it comes mainly pass rushing, and that's also not a strength for this team. So really, you're just worried about, okay, are we in a negative game script? Do we have to throw with Evan Simon? Because they're going to be balanced. But I think right away, this Temple team should be able to just run the ball right down Army's throat like most teams have this season. Conversely, can Temple stop the triple option? That's going to be the big factor in this game. We know that Army's going to run it. They've made a quarterback change throughout the season, going to Cale Helms. I don't know if that's the right move. He's not really giving you anything as a passer, which is pretty typical. Completion percentage at 51%. He does somehow have 5 big-time throws and 3 turnover-worthy plays. But we know what he's going to do. It's going to be, what does he give you on the ground? And Army's 102nd in receiving efficiency, 120th in rushing efficiency, which is a little bit interesting for this team. Now, it doesn't really matter that much because your run blocking unit is so good. They're 8th in run blocking efficiency. So when I say this team is 120th in rushing efficiency, that is trying to isolate the running back from the offensive line. Basically, it looks at, does your running back give you anything, force missed tackles or yards after contact? And the answer for Army is it's not really happening. But fortunately, when your offensive line is 8th, it doesn't really matter. They're opening a lot of holes for this team without that mattering. And they have an absolute stud at guard in Will Jeffcoat. They have an absolute stud at right tackle in Teddy Williams. And then they don't really have a weak link. Everybody on this offensive line comes in at least average to above average, and they're a healthy unit right now. So they need to face Temple's defense. Can they move the ball here? Temple is 86th overall. They're 79th against the run, 60th in pass rush, 89th in coverage. They seem to have a bit of an issue in the back end. They're changing coverages and not linebackers. They're changing defensive backs really every single week. A lot of that's been because of injury. Like at one point, Morton was hurt, Fry was hurt. They're both back now. Now you have Castleberry not playing. Powell has been very limited. So it's been a revolving door, but up front is the real key. There are weaknesses, and then there's also players that are strengths. Like Cameron Stewart is one of the most efficient players on this team, but he plays in a rotation. This is just a personal preference for this Temple team. They like to rotate their defensive line, which means you also get players on this unit that get pretty good snaps that are not that efficient. For example, like Tyrese Whitaker, he's at 240 snaps this year. He leaves the edge group, and he's played more snaps than the most efficient defender on the team, Cameron Stewart. They play the same position. Now, Sekou Chroma has been injured for part of the year. He's back now, got 14 snaps in his return from injury. Maybe they're a little better. But then you go inside. Demeric Morris is not fantastic. Alan Hayes is better. Your linebackers is kind of the same thing. Caden Supernant has been decent. Curly Ordonez is a lot better. Bottom line, you can run the ball on this Temple team, and I think it's going to be a tough preparation, even though this coaching staff does have a lot of experience preparing for the triple option. But we took an over. It's the first number we have that moved against us this week. We have a 46.5, and it currently is at 45. So like this even more when you can get it at this better number. We're going to check that everything's working for YouTube. I think it is so far. Where do we have this? Somehow I X'd out of this on the page already, but I'll pivot over to the second game while I wait for this ad to stop. I see a couple of you are in chat, so if you have audio issues or you hear any, please let me know. That's why we're testing this out today. So if you're watching back, sorry if it's a little choppier. Anyway, second game up is going to be Maryland-Rutgers. This is not one we've taken yet, but one a lot of interest in the over. Right now, the spread is 2.5 points in favor of a home Rutgers team. The total is 57. This has come down a little bit, which is really surprising to me. I wonder how much it has to do with Maryland firing their head coach and what does the offense look like. Obviously, Loxley had a big role to play in that offense being what it was over the years. They've struggled this year. They come in 113th. But what happens now is basically the big question, and my wonder is how much does that matter? But anyway, in this contest, the over is interesting mainly because this Rutgers defense is so bad. You also have pretty good pacing. Maryland is 24th in total tempo. Rutgers is 58th. And to get here, we've seen a lot of shootouts, particularly on the Rutgers side. They just lost to Illinois 35-13, which probably could have been worse. Illinois had a couple weird stuff. They missed a field goal and threw an interception. This team played a pseudo shootout against Purdue. It was 27-24 with a lot of missed opportunities. Rutgers had a turnover on down at the Purdue 6-yard line. They missed a field goal. They had a fumble at the Purdue 46. So, I mean, this has been an issue for them all season, the defense. And the times you see this coming in under the total in games they've played, it largely has to do with weird errors in the game, mistakes like a turnover on down in the red zone, which is exactly what happened against Purdue. Prior to that, most of their games had been shooting out and eclipsing 60 points regularly. On the Maryland side, this team is just a little weaker overall. They played some very easy opponents in non-conference, beating FAU and Northern Illinois and Tulsa, Wisconsin, the worst team in the Big Ten. And then they got into the heart of their schedule, and they haven't won a game since. And the big thing is they've been giving up monster point totals to teams with competent offenses. Indiana just put 55 on this team, a lot of that with their defense, but they gave up 34 to Nebraska, even UCLA at 20 points. The Washington game was a little bit funky. Washington had to overcome a 20-0 deficit, but ultimately we saw their efficiency largely in the second half. So I don't really buy either team's defense, and I especially don't buy Rutgers, which that's where we will start. This Rutgers defense is 134th in the country. They are 132nd against the run, 133rd in coverage. And when you start looking at what this team has allowed to opponents, it is absolutely mind-blowing. They lost their DC this season. He's the coach of UMass now, but you wouldn't have expected this team would have fallen off a cliff this badly. They allowed 14 yards per pass attempt to Dante Moore, 14.9 to Damon Williams, 10.3 to Iowa's Mark Gronowski, 11.4 to Daquan Finn of Miami, Ohio. Yards per carry totals, they haven't allowed anyone in the last 2 months below 4 yards per carry. Illinois, 5.5. Purdue, 7.8. Oregon, 11.5 yards per carry, a first down every time they ran the ball. Oregon's a good team, but my goodness. Washington, 6.5. These are some absolutely outlandish numbers. So then you go to Maryland's offense. Yeah, they're not on Oregon's level, but can this team move the ball even somewhat in a game like this? And I think the answer is yes. I've actually been fairly impressed with their freshman quarterback. He's not working with a lot, but Malik Washington coming in with a 59% completion percentage. He's at 12 big-time throws, only 8 turnover-worthy plays, and he somehow has only taken 3 sacks. If the receivers could improve on their 12.5% drop rate, this would have the chance to be a mediocre offense instead of a downright horrifying one. Because of a lot of those drops, the receivers come in 131st in efficiency, which is not all that surprising. They lost a lot to the NFL, including Ty Felton. All they really did was go out and get career underachiever Jaleel Farouk from Oklahoma. Then they relied on depth, Shalik Knotts, Octavian Smith. It's just not gone very well. And they don't have a fantastic run game either. You relied on incumbents like DeJuan Williams to try to replace Roman Hemby, which has not gone well, nor is the offensive line a strength for this team either. So the infrastructure is a little bad. And the question is, does it matter against this Rutgers defense? I would say probably not. Even though they're not fantastic on the offensive line, it's an imbalanced unit. They're 7th in pass blocking, 136th in run blocking. What do they want to do? They just want to throw the ball over the top of you. This is the 5th pass heaviest team in the country. So I do think Maryland does their part. Rutgers, I'm not really worried about on offense. It's cooled down a little bit, but we mentioned some of the weird stuff that's happened to them in the red zone. And some of it is that they lose their efficiency when they're getting pounded by teams like Oregon, Indiana, like the good teams on the schedule. But Ethan Kaliak-Manis comes in with a 62% completion percentage, 8.1 yards per attempt, 16 big-time throws, 8 turnover-worthy plays. His biggest issue has been the sacks. He's taken 29. The pressure rate is a little high for Rutgers. They're a much better run blocking team. They're second there, 68th in pass blocking, but that's not bad. The main issue is his pressure to sack ratio is 27.5%. He's just holding on the ball too long. And I kind of get it to a degree. They're 26th in receiving. They have playmakers, man. Like, this is a good Rutgers receiving game. KJ Doff is an elite red zone weapon with his size at 6'5", 4-star. Ian Strong's having a phenomenal season, and DT Sheffield, the North Texas transfer, kind of rounds it out. Also have a pretty good run game. I mentioned the run blocking unit is amazing for this team. Antoine Raymond has benefited. So this Rutgers team can certainly move the ball if they're not getting pounded in games and having to play this inefficient come-from-behind style of football. And then the Maryland defense. I don't really buy this unit. They do come in 26th overall, 25th in run defense, 36th in coverage, but again, how much weight is that early schedule carrying for this team when they played FAU, Northern Illinois, Tulsa, Wisconsin? They've also played some relatively inefficient offenses between there. You have Nebraska and UCLA, not to mention Raiola had 9 yards per pass attempt on them. 6.4 yards per carry was Nebraska. Last game, Indiana, of course, they'll definitely hold advantages, and Fernando Mendoza passed for 9.6 yards per attempt, and Indiana rushed for 7.1. Even UCLA was at 5.5 yards per carry. So my argument with this Maryland defense would be you have really weak teams carrying too much weight. I understand you took care of business and you did what you were supposed to against these teams, but I'm just not really sure I buy the player personnel for this group. You go and look, they're starting a lot of transfers, and really the only players I can say confidently I believe in are like an Eric O'Neal off the edge, or Bo Masco's having a good season at corner, but even across the board from there are weaknesses for all of these teams, especially like a Kaj Sanders is having an awful season in his second year, their 4-star safety. So I do think this Rutgers team will move the ball here as well. I hesitated just waiting to see where it settled. It was at 58. It's down to 57. I'm not sure where this closes. It looks like it's meeting resistance, but I do plan to take a Rutgers side in this contest. An over in this contest. We're just going to see where this settles as we get closer to kickoff. Next up, we are going to, where are we going next? Oh yeah, I took a lot of Conference USA games. I like some totals in the Conference USA area of the board, and that starts with Florida International and Middle Tennessee. It's a pick 'em right now. Conference USA has transitioned back to Saturdays as they defer to the MAC on Tuesdays. The total in this game is 51.5. Pacing in this game is about average. You have FIU coming in a little below at 91. You have Middle Tennessee coming in at 46. Both teams like to pass the ball, especially Middle Tennessee State. They don't really do it with any efficiency. As you can see, both offenses are well below average in this game. But I actually kind of like the defenses for both teams. So again, typically we're starting with the offenses for these teams. Let's start with the defenses. Actually, before we get there, injuries just quickly. Justin Cayenne at tight end for FIU. Xavier Chapman at defensive tackle. He's missed a couple games now. Those are the two big ones. For Middle Tennessee, they have some offensive line problems with Marcus Miller, Ellis Adams. On defense, a couple DBs, Jawan Gaston, Ricky Smith, and John House, but those aren't really new. Middle Tennessee's been playing with some of those for a while now. Offensively, we'll begin with Keon Jenkins taking on Middle Tennessee's defense. Mentioned kind of liking Middle Tennessee State's defense. They come in 57th overall. They are 27th against the run, 82nd in pass rush, 99th in coverage. What does FIU do? Well, they're a fairly balanced team at 65th in total pass rate, but this team has really struggled to move the ball through the air because of Keon Jenkins. He has a 63% completion percentage this year, 6.2 yards per attempt, 5 big-time throws, 13 turnover-worthy plays. That is a lot of regression, and he's run hot there. Only 4 of them have been converted to picks. Another problem is the negative plays via sacks. He's taken 14 of them on a 36% pressure rate, which is not ideal. But we kind of knew this was going to be a tough season for them, losing their top 2 receivers, not really doing a lot to replace them. And then the run game has also struggled. You lose a guy like Shamari Lawrence in conference. It's just not really easy to replicate what they had. I do think their run game is the strength if they can move the ball on the ground against Middle Tennessee State with Keyshawn Owens, Anthony Carey. Keon Jenkins just doesn't really look healthy enough to run the ball right now. But that's also the strength of Middle Tennessee. They have about one good unit on their entire team, at least one difference-making unit. I imagine every one of these players that doesn't graduate is going to get poached. DeMonte Smith is having an excellent season at nose tackle. He's complemented by Shakai Wood on the edge. Anthony Bynum is having an excellent season. And then Reggie Johnson kind of rounds it out on the edge, having a pretty good season himself. Then you get to linebacker. Parker Hughes is having an excellent year. Alex Mitchell's okay. Their main problem is that back end and throwing the ball over the top. But you also have the benefit of this unit sometimes getting home quicker than an offensive line can take advantage of you. And FIU's offensive line is still a problem pass blocking where they're 108. So there's a big advantage in the trenches for Middle Tennessee State on defense, which is the first key point towards an under. That's going to be hard for FIU to deal with. Second, I don't know what happened to Nicholas Vadiato. 59.5% completion percentage is much worse than his career average, 5.9 yards per attempt. The big-time throws aren't really there. He has a dead-even ratio between big-time throws and turnover-worthy plays, 6 apiece. Every turnover-worthy play has been converted. He has 6 interceptions. 18 sacks is not fantastic. 8% drop rate's not fantastic. Everything is just sort of regressed from Middle Tennessee State this season. They come in 125th in receiving, 104th in rushing. Their offensive line stinks. It's a bottom 15 unit in the entire country right now. FIU's defense isn't very good overall, but they're sort of built like Middle Tennessee State, just in the inverse. This team has an excellent secondary, and they're very weak up front. Well, Middle Tennessee State is the second pass-heaviest team in the country. This is supposedly a strength on strength. I wouldn't call it that for Middle Tennessee State, but FIU's secondary is a unit that is a difference-making unit in this conference. They have some good players like Mr. Clark and Brian Blades. Brian Blades is a P4 transfer. I believe he started his career with Miami. These are players that just typically aren't at this level of competition, and it is very hard to throw the ball in the secondary, especially when you're a struggling team that doesn't really have a lot to work with for Nicholas Vadiato. Your top receivers like Najee Cox or like a Cameron Lacey, who's not even a full-time player. They use Jakal Middlebrook as a lead back, but he's also not a difference-making unit. Your offensive line has been banged up for games now. The only guy who's above average is Mateo Guevara. So I think this FIU defense also holds an edge here. On top of pace just being right on average, we're looking at this game towards an under just because of offensive inefficiencies facing defenses that have strengths where the other team likes to play. So we took an under 51.5. This has kind of remained stagnant, so this is the exact number we have right now. Kennesaw State, New Mexico State. This game has a 9.5 spread in favor of Kennesaw, a 52.5 total. Another under we like here. We took 52.5, so it's still sitting pretty close to this. The pace in this game is better. 43rd comes in Kennesaw State. 54th, that is where New Mexico State sits. New Mexico State is very pass-heavy. Kennesaw State is not. They're the opposite. So in this game, looking towards an under, you have to first start with the defenses. And the first point of contention would be Kennesaw State has had an explosive offense when Amari Odom is on the field. He keeps getting hurt, but when he plays, he's been excellent. But this Kennesaw State team has just slowly accrued more and more injuries. Amari Odom played through it in their last game. Coleman Bennett and Alexander Diggs, their two running backs, tried to play through it. Both made it a couple snaps, had to leave. So we saw Belcher playing. He's their third stringer. On the offensive line, they lost JT Pennington. They have a couple defensive injuries like Tylen Dunlap, Jaden Kelly, Garland Benyard. It's kind of the same thing with New Mexico State, too. They've lost 3 starting offensive linemen throughout the year. Ezra Christensen was hurt at defensive tackle. Allegedly, he's going to be back in this game, according to the coaches. But Tyler Martinez at linebacker, DeCare Cobbs at defensive back. It's been a mess for both teams injury-wise. So Odom, this is the biggest threat to the total overall. 70% completion percentage, 9.9 yards per attempt, 8 Big Ten throws, 4 turnover-worthy plays. Could be better, too. 10% drop rate for this team. I mean, Odom's going to get poached by a program that is a little higher than Kennesaw State, you have to think, at some point. And he's making do with not that much. They do not have a good run game overall as far as the running backs on their own. You have one good receiver in Gabriel Benyard. The rest of this group is pretty mid. And the offensive line is not my favorite unit. They're 83rd in pass blocking, 132nd in run blocking. So it's a pretty bad infrastructure. You can kind of see how he gets hurt repeatedly when he does take off and run. He's a key part of that run game. You just don't have a lot around you. It's basically a two-man show between Amari Odom and Gabriel Benyard. New Mexico State, for all their flaws, they have a decent defense. They come in 64th here. They're 81st against the run, 57th in pass coverage. And when you go back and look at the schedule, this team has played relatively well in a lot of contests. They did allow 35 points to Western Kentucky in their last game, but before that, 24-17 was the final score in an OT contest against Missouri State. The real issue for them throughout the year has just been injuries for the most part. But on a per-play basis, New Mexico State, they look actually decent on defense. And when some of you may look at like box scores and stuff and see some pretty elevated scores like 27-30 against Liberty. There were 5 turnovers in that game. A lot of this has been their quarterback, Fife, turning the ball over in key situations. And it's not that the other team is having really efficient, explosive plays in offense. You just have a short field, you're going to score. So we need to avoid that. That is another threat to a total in this game. Fife has had a brutal season, 54.5% completion percentage, 19 big-time throws, 15 turnover-worthy plays. It would actually look pretty good if he would just stop throwing the ball to the other team. And he's had some outlandish interceptions this year. He had one interception. I forget who it was against. where he's rolling out to the sidelines to his left and he's trying to throw the ball away, but he doesn't throw it far enough out of bounds. So it gets picked off on like a toe tap. When he's trying to throw the ball away, he's not even trying to put the ball in harm's way. It's just unbelievable decision making. Anyway, that could be a reason you like an under as long as he's not turning the ball over within his own 20 or something. He takes a ton of sacks, 23 of them on the year. That's a 25% pressure to sack ratio. His receivers are also very inefficient. They have a 10% drop rate. They're 134th in rushing. This is a horrible rushing team. Their O-line is arguably worse than Kennesaw State's. They're outside the top 105 in both pass blocking and run blocking. And Kennesaw State is a decent defense. They come in 65th, one spot ahead of New Mexico State. So I don't really have any faith in New Mexico State's offense. If Amari Odom can be held in check even a little bit, we should be looking at a pretty decent score here towards an under, which is where we will land. Next up is Tulsa FAU. Got to be careful a little bit with Tulsa. This is a team that has bit me multiple times. They are a 3.5-point underdog in a game with a 62.5 total to Florida Atlantic. It has been a brutal season under Zach Kittley for Florida Atlantic in their first season, and I bet them a couple times and lost money. I bet them in week 1 against Maryland when they lost 39-7. They committed 6 turnovers in that game. Recently, it's not been great. In the last 4 games, they have losses to Navy by 10 points. South Florida, they got blown out. That's going to happen. They beat UAB 53-33, and they beat Rice 27-21. It's been up and down. Meanwhile, for this Tulsa team, it's been an incredibly weird season. They beat Abilene Christian and they beat Oklahoma State, and that's about it. They lose to Temple in overtime in their last game. They lose to East Carolina 41-27. They got blown out by Memphis, blown out by Tulane, played Navy semi-close. This has been a very tough schedule in the American. They basically have played all of the hard teams to get here. And it's just funny that their lone win against FBS is Oklahoma State, who on paper should be your hardest opponent, but it's just completely collapsed. Regardless, injury-wise, Mekhi Miller for Tulsa, Jaquan Adams on the offensive line, John Hill on the offensive line, and Byron Turner Jr. on the edge. For FAU, it's just Xavier Terrell at running back, Alex Adkavaj at offensive line, and Therese Reed defensive back. Biggest concern I have with Tulsa is probably the quarterback situation and Baylor Hayes. Completion percentage of 59.5%, 6.8 yards per attempt. He has 8 big-time throws, 12 turnover-worthy plays, 16 sacks. All of that is very, very average for a guy like Baylor Hayes. And I'm just not sure they're actually going out there and putting the best quarterback on the field each and every week. This Tulsa team has Kirk Francis. And if you just look at the efficiency metrics and the turnover-worthy plays, Kirk Francis has played a lot better than Baylor Hayes, which is saying a lot because Kirk Francis isn't great. The rest of the offense, I think you can actually have some pretty good faith in. The running back room is strong with Dominic Richardson. He's an Oklahoma State transfer. He's played at a couple places. He was at Baylor. A.J. Allen's also been at a lot of places like Nebraska and Miami. It's a quality running back room. Your receivers aren't that bad either. Zion Booker's having a pretty good season. Micah Teese is a Texas A&M transfer. I guess if you were to poke a hole in this team other than Baylor Hayes, it's probably the offensive line. They are outside the top 100. But fortunately, this FAU defense is 123rd overall, and they are bad against both the pass and run. 111th in run defense, 125th in coverage. That's how they became such a crazy shootout team. So even though Tulsa has some weaknesses, I think there's enough here where they should probably move the ball on this FAU defense that's just been absolutely atrocious this year. Then with FAU, they kind of have a similar problem. Their quarterback might be the weak link of their team. Caden Veldkamp, this is the Western Kentucky transfer, 14 big-time throws, 15 turnover-worthy plays, 15 sacks. It's just a lot of negative for this kid. And he's an experienced signal caller. He played with Western Kentucky before this. Receiving efficiency is 76th. Rushing efficiency, 121st. It's relatively non-existent for this team. There's just not a lot around Veldkamp, and I'm not sure he's the answer to begin with. We mentioned Terrell being hurt at running back, so you go to Jamari Sands, Caton Shields-Dutton at running back. That's okay. Easton Messer is your leading receiver. He's basically this guy where they continually spam checkdowns to every single play. From there, you have Dominique Henry and Jayshon Platt. It's a very mid group. Your offensive line, I think you have one good unit or one good player in Vincent Fiacable, but Ja'Kavion Nonard did miss some time. He's back now. He's the only other guy that's above average. And then there are some legitimate liabilities like Daughtry Richardson opposite Nonard at tackle has been a complete mess. So now you need to take that unit, which has really struggled against some of the better teams, up against Tulsa's defense. Right now, this Tulsa team comes in 13th in total defense. This is maybe the best, that might be an exaggeration, one of the best defenses in the conference. 20th in run defense, 31st in coverage. This is how they've kept games close, stayed in games, and won a game against Oklahoma State. Jaden Burnett is one of the best rushers in the conference. Inside, you have both Tim Hardiman and Nakeem Johnson. At linebacker, Ray Coney is having an excellent season. And you actually have good defensive backs like Zach Williams and Elijah Green. This defense is probably going to have like 3 or 4 all-conference players at some level. Not saying they're all going to be first team, but this is an excellent defense. And now you're taking Kitley, who's put the ball in harm's way a lot. He's not very mobile. He's a big player in the pocket and looks functional. He's not having his best season on the ground by any means. So we took a Tulsa side in this, fearful because they've underachieved this year, largely because of quarterback play. But this is one that it's on the card. We have it at 3.5. It has remained constant throughout the week. This is not one where you are seeing a lot change. Next up, San Diego State, Hawaii. Great game in the Mountain West. Fantastic. San Diego State comes in as a touchdown favorite on the road. Always hard to fly out to the island and play. Believe it or not, one of the best home field advantages in the country with travel. Total's 50. Might be a little lower than you'd expect for a Hawaii game, but the San Diego State defense is legit, man. They're also playing really slow. They're 130th in both pass rate and pace. They win via their defense. And let's start with the offensive side. You know what? With this team, actually, before I get ahead of myself, the one caveat I want to talk about with San Diego State, strength of schedule. It's not been there. They have played a couple teams that are a step up in competition, but, you know, Washington State, that was when Washington State was starting. They're now 4th string quarterback. So somehow San Diego State found a way to lose to them. That is a bad data point. Then they follow that up with a beat down shutout win over Cal, 34-0. They beat Northern Illinois 6-3, who's an awful team. And then they go out and beat Colorado State, Nevada, shut out Fresno State, and beat Wyoming. They have not played any of the really good teams in this conference yet. So it's a weak schedule. They've answered the call. They've done what they are supposed to, but that's the hole you want to poke. It's not like it's been all that much better for Hawaii. They just lost to San Jose State in a back-and-forth shootout. Beat Colorado State before that, Utah State before that. Those are weaker teams. Air Force, Fresno, they lost to by a pair of just 2 points, really. They got beat down by Arizona, who's the best team they faced. For injury-wise, it's Jacob Bostic at receiver, Kalen Ellis on the offensive line, and Teno Latuli at linebacker. Hawaii looks pretty healthy at this point, but one of the big upgrades of the San Diego State team was just swapping out Danny O'Neal for Jaden Denegal this offseason, the former 4-star Michigan transfer. And he's not really a fantastic quarterback, but you get in a steady game manager, and then suddenly your offense is a lot better. He has an 8.5 yards per attempt, a 63.5% completion percentage, 10 big-time throws, 9 turnover-worthy plays, 9 sacks. None of that is extremely high. So you have a steadying hand on the offense at quarterback, which has been a benefit to this team. They are a little prone to drops. They have a 9% drop rate, which definitely hasn't helped this team. Jacob Bostic going down probably won't help either. And it's just not going to be a team that really lives through their skill players. Outside of Lucky Sutton, their running back, you're kind of dealing with a weak unit. Best receiver is Jordan Napier, but Donovan Brown, Nathan Acevedo behind him. You have one good receiver, one good running back. Your offensive line is also a middling group at best, 61st in pass blocking, 54th in run blocking. So at some point, I really wonder if this team has enough offensive juice to beat, like, I don't know, a Boise State or something like that. But right now, it looks fine against these bad Mountain West teams. Hawaii's defense is 75th, and they're 120th against the run. So I really think Lucky Sutton probably does whatever he wants, even though Hawaii's defense is improved. They just don't have the horses up front on this defensive line to really stop a guy like Lucky Sutton or an offensive line that's imbalanced towards run blocking. Their best defenders are defensive tackles, Dejon Benton and Quinn Williams, but your linebacker play is not great. It's just probably going to be a little too much for them to defend. And then when they have the ball, the offense has changed a little bit. They're still 3rd in pass rate, but they're not playing at the speed of light anymore with his run and shoot. Micah Alejado is not running the ball. He obviously suffered that hamstring injury all the way back in week 1, and he's taken some sacks, which will bring down your rushing numbers. He has 18 of those on the year. His pressure to sack ratio is a little high at 21%. But the passing efficiency has dropped to 66% completion, down to 7 yards per attempt. Part of this probably because you had some hurt receivers. Nick Sanicola was out for a lot of the year. He has returned, but he's also probably come back too early. He's had a well below average season. Carson Pupunu is a player that's also well below average, which kind of just means Jackson Harrison, Pofeli, Ashlock are the only guys you trust. And then they never run the ball. So it's a weird unit. It's a limited unit. And this San Diego State defense, man, is legit. This is one of the best pass defenses in the entire G5. They're 3rd overall, 2nd in coverage, 8th in run defense, 42nd in pass rush. I listened to a couple NFL draft shows. I keep hearing the name Chris Johnson. He's a senior for San Diego State at corner. He's had a couple interceptions this year, a pick 6. He is in lockdown, shutdown corner, and it's not just him. Opposite him, Bryce Phillips is having an excellent year. Dalshawn Staley. I don't know why I'm struggling with that name. He'll play alongside Dwayne McDougal at safety. There's 5 guys in the secondary that are deep. Your back 7 is also is linebackers Owen Chambliss, Mr. Williams. Excellent players. Tano Latuli's banged up right now, but when he's healthy, he's excellent. And then they actually have a very good pass rusher in Trey White, too. The best way to beat this team is running it straight down their throat, which, one, hasn't been super successful, and Hawaii has no interest in doing. So I like San Diego State. We took a -6.5. I think you could find that number if you really search for it, but for whatever reason, whatever state you live in, you can't get a 6.5. I think you can play the 7 if you need to. Charlotte, East Carolina, we took an over in this game. Pacing should be very good. Charlotte is 50th. East Carolina is 7th. Both of these teams will pass the ball a lot. Charlotte has passed the ball a lot, and East Carolina has actually somewhat embraced the run. I need to double check this number. I almost don't believe it. Yeah, sure enough, East Carolina comes in 100th in pass rate. Man, that is a surprising number. Anyway, to get here, Charlotte has won 1 game. It is against Monmouth, and they've been blown out in a ton of games. So that's the first thing we want to look to. 54 points allowed against North Texas, 49 points allowed against Temple, 24 against Army, 54 against South Florida, 28 against Rice. They allowed 35 points to Monmouth, an FCS team. Now, Monmouth is a pretty good FCS team, but holy smokes. East Carolina, meanwhile, we know they will ring up points on you. 45 points against Temple. They had 41 against Tulsa, and that's just their last 2 games. They had a lot of opportunity against Tulane in the game they lost. That was a super inefficient game on both sides of the ball. Injury-wise, Charlotte has a couple. I'm not going to say all of the ones they've sustained throughout the year. Obviously, Charlotte lost their quarterback. They've had a ton of injuries through the year. The ones that are kind of affecting the team right now on the offensive line, Jesse Ramel and Johnny King, and Jaquarius Conley at defensive back. For ECU, looks like Parker Jenkins is a little banged up, and then Bryce Weaver on the offensive line, as well as Rashad Reason. So towards an over here, I'll start with East Carolina. Caden Hauser's having an unbelievable season. Kind of see why he was such a decent recruit for Michigan State back in the day. His completion percentage is 67%, 8.3 yards per attempt, 19 big-time throws, 9 turnover-worthy plays, only 8 sacks. And then you pair this with the receivers he's throwing the ball to. You have Yannick Smith, you have Anthony Smith, Brock Spalding when he's playing a full-time role. He's been splitting recently, but even when he splits, Jaquaze Petaway, Peyton Mangrum, 2 power forward transfers. This is an elite receiving room. The run game is actually okay, too. You got a grinder back in Marlon Gunn. He's kind of the guy you need 3 yards. He's getting you 3 yards. You need 4 yards. He's getting you 3 yards. But that's still, it has a role. And then Jenkins and Montgomery round that unit out. The offensive line is horrible. I can't believe what Caden Hauser has done with the pressure numbers he's been under. But somehow he's made it work. I mean, I bet against East Carolina a couple times because of some of these deficiencies they have on offense. This is maybe one of the worst offensive lines in the G5. Hauser is a wizard. So I'm not going to be betting against him for that reason any longer, just because he's shown us over a long enough sample he can throw the ball under pressure, which is absolutely wild. But anyway, in this game, he's facing an opponent that doesn't pressure the quarterback at all anyway. This Charlotte defense is 132nd, 130th in run defense, 125th in pass rush, and 134th in coverage. I don't think we need to get into this This is a horrible defense that's been ravaged by injury in year one under Tim Allen. They are allowing 1 million points every game. Can Charlotte do anything in this game to get us there? And first of all, I'm not sure Charlotte has to do a ton. If Charlotte gets shut out, the score honestly might be like a 56-0. But their quarterback is Grayson Loftus. I don't feel most confident he finishes the game as the starter. They've kind of rotated guys here with Wilkie coming in at times. But Loftus has a 49.5% completion, 9 yards per attempt, 6 yards per attempt, 9 big time throws, 6 turnover-worthy plays, 4 picks, 10 sacks, which is not great. And part of the problem has been the drops from the receivers again. I mean, these teams in the G5 with their drops. The receiving room, I don't actually hate. Part of the problem with this team has just been a very hurt offensive line, and then you put like a Loftus behind it. It's not going to be a good situation. They're 124th in pass blocking, 78th in run blocking. It's a little better than East Carolina, but I don't know if they have a single above average player right now, because you like remove Ramo from the lineup. Johnny King hasn't played in weeks with that back injury. It's not a tenable situation for the quarterback. They don't have a good run game. So you have like a Javen Nicholas, Sean Brown, EJ Mason. Those are efficient receivers by the numbers. They're just not getting enough time or accurate passes for this to really matter. But if there's a strength of the team, that's it. Fortunately, East Carolina is not very good on defense. They're 76th in run defense, 91st in pass rush, 115th in coverage. That gets you to 110th overall. So maybe even a Charlotte can move the ball against this team. I'm a little hesitant there, but I think the answer is yes. They don't have a single difference maker on this team. Your best players are edge rushers Josiah Robinson and Julian Davis. It's a tough situation for them defensively. That's how they end up in so many shootouts. But ultimately, we took this at a 55. Current number is 56. I think that's fine if you need to play it there. Florida State, Clemson, holy smokes, how did this one end up on the injury report, or excuse me, on the greasy game? So many expectations, and now these teams are fighting for a bowl game. I mean, like, come on, guys. Clemson is -1. The total is 56. To get here, what have these teams done? Florida State beat Alabama in what I would still argue is the craziest data point of this college football season, in a season full of crazy data points. After that, they beat East Texas A&M, an FCS school, Kent State. And last time out, they did beat Wake Forest, and they killed them. In between all that, they have losses to Virginia, not a ton of shame there. Lost to Miami, no shame there. Pitt, kind of shameful. You can't be losing to Pitt. And then the worst one was the Stanford loss. Now, 73% post-game win expectancy. Castellanos got decapitated in the game. The reason they lost was their 13 penalties. Clemson, meanwhile, it's not been better. This team needs to go 3-1 to make a bowl game, which is crazy. They already have incurred 5 losses, including LSU, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, SMU, and Duke. So your wins are against Boston College, North Carolina, and Troy this year. That is a horrific strength of schedule and strength of victory, whatever you want to call it there. Injuries have not been super kind to both teams, which shouldn't be too impactful in this game. And part of the reason we like an over, both of these teams are playing fast. Both of these teams are playing with efficient offenses. The defenses have let them down for a lot of the season. When you look at Florida State and Tommy Castellanos, he's having a pretty good season in the Gus Malzahn offense. He's averaging over a first down every time he throws the ball, 10.3 yards per pass attempt. Not putting the ball in harm's way, 4 turnover-worthy plays. He actually has more interceptions. When that happens, means your receiver probably tipped a screen into the air or dropped a slant, didn't get their hands in the right place, and a defender got an interception they shouldn't have. He has 16 big-time throws. He has only taken 8 sacks. And they have some players that I think are worth mentioning skill position-wise. Like, when healthy and you throw the ball to Deuce Robinson, he's a 6'6" matchup nightmare for opposing corners, just with the size and athleticism he plays with. He should be healthy in this game. Randy Pittman has missed 3 games, I believe, 3 or 4 at tight end. They use him as a rusher at times. Squirrel White's been hurt. You have multiple 4-stars that you're playing with LaWayne McCoy. When healthy, like Javen Boggs, he's not going to be healthy here. And Micah Danzy's a sprinter on the edge. So there's legitimate weapons that they can use to exploit Clemson's defense, which just, there's no way around this. It is underachieved. If you went and looked at a mock draft at the beginning of the season, which obviously wouldn't be accurate, you would have seen TJ Parker, edge rusher, Peter Woods, defensive tackle. Some of these guys were top 10 projected picks that have just not lived up to expectation. Sammy Brown has reached a sophomore slump. He's playing right on average. Avion Terrell's been the only difference maker in the secondary. It hasn't really mattered. You've been able to move the ball on Clemson's defense. They come in 76th in coverage, which is an absolutely wild number considering the recruits and the players they have on their back end. Part of it's coaching. I think part of it is just they have been unable to or unwilling to embrace the transfer portal to any level. So even Will Help, the only transfer they took, it's not been great. So you can move the ball on this Duke or on this Clemson team. We just saw Duke do it last week. At will, the over came in that game in the first half. On the other side, Cade Klubnik, he has the ankle injury. He's playing through it, so mobility is probably a little bit affected for him. But this team is playing so fast, and they're playing with such a high pass rate. I mean, with the receivers they have, it's really hard for them not to put up points. Even when the defense lets them down, you still have Antonio Williams, TJ Moore, and Tyler Brown. So yeah, Bryant Wesco goes down. It's kind of a tough injury. You still have those three to rely on. Your running back, Adam Randall, certainly limited as he converts from receiver or running back, but a pretty good player there. Klubnik is efficient despite all the weaknesses of the team. The offensive line has been the main problem with this team, and it's largely been because of injury. Like Tristan Lee goes down. Walker Parks has been banged up for part of the time. Elijah Thurman hasn't always played. So you have Blake Miller, Braden Jacobs, who's a freshman. He's your second best offensive lineman. That's absolutely unbelievable. Like Colin Sadler and Ryan Linthicum, it's just been embarrassing how bad they've been. Harris Sewell, I don't know. But can Florida State take advantage of this is the question. They do have a pretty good defense. The problem is they're weak in the secondary and they don't have a good pass rush. So that does not set up as a major threat for this Clemson team in this game. Florida State's 92nd in pass rush. Where they are really winning on defense when they win is just stopping the run. Even their good edge rushers like Deontay McCray leads this team in efficiency from the edge. It's largely just because he's setting the edge and defending the run. On the back end, you have Jerry Wilson, who's been a surprising player for me. He's a transfer. Earl Little's having a decent season. Everyone else has been beat. And with these receivers, with Cade Klubnik, I do expect them to put up points. So right away, offensive efficiency against some defensive weaknesses. Pacing in this game should be just fine. At a 55, I think that's fine. 56, obviously, towards another key number. I think you can play this if it's the number that you need to. Colorado State and UNLV, I think we got 2 games left here. So in this one, UNLV is a 4.5-point favorite. The total is 62. Big total in this game. UNLV has just really not lived up to expectations on defense, man. They continually get in shootouts. Saw it again in their last game. They drop a game to a good New Mexico team. Don't get it twisted. That's a good team. 40-35. Lost to Boise State 56-31 before that. Beat Air Force 51-48 before that. Miami, Ohio 41-38. I mean, what is this defense doing? Fortunately, they are playing arguably the worst offense in the conference. I would make that argument, and I'm going to right now. This Colorado State team is atrocious offensively. They fired their coach. They benched their starting quarterback, Fowler Nicolosi. They went to their backup, Jackson Brousseau. He has played so bad in their last game. They just went to their third stringer, Darius Curry, who is a redshirt freshman, 2024 recruit, a 3-star dual threat who has 21 career pass attempts. I guess if you want to make an argument why he might work, he's at least different than Brousseau and Fowler Nicolosi, who are pocket passers. Curry at least can run the ball a little bit. Now, I don't know if he's going to play. He's going to play the whole game. They lost 28-0 to Wyoming. 28-0 to Wyoming. So this offense has no good players. They cannot move the ball at all. Their receivers are atrocious. I guess if you wanted to point to a successful unit, it would be the running backs with Lloyd Avant, Jalen Dupree. But your number one receivers like Armani Winfield, he's the only one that's even touched average. They've got a cool tight end, Rocky Beers, but I mean, he's even average. Your O-line has one good player in Aaron Karras. I mean, this is a brutal offense, man. A brutal offense. The one player they got in the transfer player portal, the Ohio State 4-star, Kojo Antwi, he's played 87 snaps this year. I don't know, man. I don't know how they score. Independent. of UNLV's defense. I don't know how this team scores points. Fortunately, this is the stoppable force meets the movable object. UNLV's defense is trash, man, and this unit has no business being this bad. The money they spent on the portal this season, I think part of it you just have to chalk up to coaching has been poor for this team, even though people will want to try to shoehorn this guy into other jobs. I mean, they have a good player at every level of the defense, and then everything else is horrific. You have Tunmi Zadeli. He's a former 4-star, and Chief Borders on the edge. I mean, their edge group should be better. Jalen Lee's a former 4-star at defensive tackle. Lucas Conti's their best player there. Marcel McDuffie's been fine at linebacker, but they've not found an answer opposite him. The defensive backs have been atrocious, and I don't really understand. You have Jaheim Joseph. He was from West Virginia. Jake Pope. He was from Georgia. Amaris Brown. Laterris Welch. Denver Harris was a 5-star. He's played 75 snaps this year. I mean, I can't legitimately look at this team and the players they have and explain to you why they've been so bad. Just the honest answer is they've been really bad. But on the other side, what we can say is the offense at least has been explosive, and they have two complete studs in Anthony Calandria at quarterback, Jaden Thomas at running back. This team's going to score on you. Jaden Bradley's been fine at receiver. I don't think the offensive line is a real liability for this team. They come in 69th in run blocking, 98th in pass blocking. It's not good, but it's not bad. And Colorado State's defense is just as bad as UNLV's. They are 135th. For all of the stuff UNLV does that's poor on defense, they still come in 72nd in total defensive efficiency. A lot of that is turnover luck. But Colorado State is the second worst defense in the country statistically and efficiency-wise. 135th against the run. Jaden Thomas and Calandria are going to have a field day. They're 91st in coverage. I actually took a 5.5 and it moved against me. I'm very surprised by this number. I know you go to elevation. It's not an easy place to play, but man, this Colorado State team I think is just dead after firing their coach. And UNLV, still a lot to play for. I don't think they're really alive in this conference because of their defense, but you never know, I guess. Let's get to our last game, and then I'll turn to the chat. If there's anything you want me to touch on briefly for these games, I can tell you where we have it or whatnot. Thank you for watching this live as we try to go through, I don't know, some kinks maybe. Hopefully there aren't any, but we'll see how this looks on the playback. Florida, Kentucky, another interesting one for the greasy games. Florida is a 3-point favorite. Total in this game is 44.5. Biggest story in this game, fired coach Billy Napier. Kentucky using their normal underdog. I guess we're going to be frisky enough to pick off a team here and there and annoy the rest of the conference. That's what they've been through throughout the years. The real story with Florida has been injuries and who is DJ Lagway going to throw to. You lose Eugene Wilson for this week. Apparently Dallas Wilson is going to be back. So I thought they were going to be down all three of their starting receivers. I think they're going to be down just one. So Dallas Wilson's going to be out there on an island. You don't have Vernell Brown, or I forget. Maybe one of these two is back. Vernell Brown or Dallas Wilson. Eugene Wilson is for sure out. Aiden Mazzell is going to have to step up. He's been really efficient, but he's only played 73 snaps. I'm not sure about that. They've been super hurt at running back, Jacoby Jackson, Duke Clark. It's been a complete mess for this team. They're starting tight end at the beginning of the season. Tony Livingston went down, so now Hayden Hansen has to play. A couple offensive linemen have been hurt. I mean, what a mess. Injuries have decimated this team. But they've gotten a lot of guys back on defense. So Devin Moore had been hurt, Sharif Denson had been hurt, Cormani McLean had been hurt, and Jordan Castile had been hurt. All four of them returned. So that is a positive situation for this team. They're getting healthier defensive back, and they need it because you have to win this game with your defense at this point. They do have a pretty decent defensive line, especially in run defense with Tyreek Sapp and George Gums. They've gotten a lot healthier there too. Miles Graham is an excellent linebacker, and now you at least have a secondary that can kind of threaten you. So you're taking all of that up against Cutter Boley, who's, to put it kindly, turnover-worthy prone. He is a 4-star, probably playing too early in his career at this point, but Cutter Boley's real problem has been the negative plays. You see the flashes, but then, okay, he has 11 turnover-worthy plays, been converted to 7 interceptions. He has 17 sacks. Pressure rate's not great for this team, but really it's just him holding on the ball too long. The pressure-to-sack ratio is 26.5%. So, I mean, this Kentucky team can't score. Florida's defense should be healthy enough to at least put some clamps on them in this matchup. And then on the other side, health of Florida's offense isn't great. The strength of Kentucky is their defense overall. When you look at their player personnel, This is where most of their better players are. And if you do beat them, you have to beat them over the top. And I don't know if Florida has the healthy bodies to do that right now, because on the line, David Goose is having an excellent season. Tavian Gadsden's playing well. You have good linebacker plays. Sam Green and Mike Weiss, Humphrey Grace on the edge. Really, the weak points are on the back end in the secondary. Ty Bryant's back there. Quashie Scott are okay, but the rest of this unit is gettable, and Florida has not had a fantastic season through the air. Part of that being DJ Lagway. So we took an under in this game. Pacing is also very bad. You have two teams very slow in pace. Florida's 113th. Kentucky's 92nd. Kentucky will also prefer to run the ball if they can. Florida's going to pass, I guess. They might actually change that 29 ranked pass rate because of the player personnel issues they have. But under 44.5 is where we will go. We took an under 46, but I still think you can play this. Like above a 43, that's where I'd stop. All right, looking to the chat, I see some of you, I didn't promote this at all, and some of you actually come in there. Let's have a week. Thank you for all you do, Matt. Thank you for watching. This is not, I love doing this. Couldn't do it without you guys. Shouldn't be thanking me. You guys, thank you. No Virginia game. I'm debating Virginia. I do show some value there, bringing you behind the glass on that. We make it outside 7. Wake Forest, to be honest with you, is a team I've had a bad read on this year and lost some money betting against, going all the way back to week 1 when they played Kennesaw. This team has a very weird body of work. You'll see them cover spreads by a wide margin when they shouldn't, and the opposite is true too when they get blown out. I love this Virginia team. I've been playing them a lot. It's been very profitable. We're going to debate that one. I don't know where I'll end up on Virginia, but that is definitely one that could end up on the card at this point. Which is more scripted, fake WWE or NFL? Huh? I don't think either are. Well, WWE is scripted. I don't think NFL is scripted. Live stream. He's live. Gotta love it. Yeah, thank you. App State laid a goose egg. Where do you go for injury reports? Conference USA, MAC, Sunbelt, American. I don't know about the Mountain West off the top of my head. If you Google that conference injury report or availability report, you'll get it. So for example, if you Google MAC availability report or MAC injury report, it's going to be the first link that pops up on Google. It's going to give you a list of dates. You click the date it is, and they come out an hour before kickoff in the MAC. In the Sun Belt, I believe it's an hour. In the American, it's 2 hours. So you're just going to have to go conference by conference, but that's where they are published by the conferences. They're usually on Twitter with the beat reporters, but the best way to get them is just look at the injury reports released by the conference. Did you bet any of your Friday leans? Let me go and look. I forget off the top of my head. I wanted to take Memphis until the quarterback situation came about, and I probably will take that closer to kickoff. I have the under in Houston UCF is all I have right now. I believe that's all I had yesterday. I have not added anything yet at this point. Most likely to add Memphis out of everything that was discussed there. Do you have any lean on Kennesaw State, New Mexico State? Your lean is New Mexico State. That team, if they could stop throwing interceptions incessantly, they would have covered a lot more spreads than they've covered. And they've covered a few already this year. And some of the baffling interceptions that have been thrown, I just don't have the answer for, man. You're trying to throw the ball away. You can't get it out of bounds, and the defender intercepts it. I mean, like, what a mess that was. But thank you to the few of you that were in here watching live. We're going to wrap this up. I appreciate you as we try to test this out. It appears the audio was okay. I did get my internet fixed, I think. So hopefully we can do more of these live. I'll try to come up with some sort of schedule that makes sense for you guys, and then you can ask questions, whatever it is you want. But trying to engage more with you as we close up the season and turn the page to college basketball. But that'll do it for us. Good luck to everyone out there. Thank you again as we go through this. We'll be back again next week with more college football. But until then, good luck. We will see you again soon.